Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about permafrost. So before we proceed further in this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, and share my video. So let's get started. So permafrost, it's basically a new term for the most of you, if I'm right. So before we talk about it, let me tell you what is permafrost. So it is the ground which completely freezes, like places in Antarctica and Arctic. Right, they are very cold throughout the year, so their ground is like completely frozen, like completely ice, like almost like ice, but it's completely frozen. Like, oh my god, you're whenever you can't even put your bare feet, or even you have to wear like 20 socks to put your feet comfortably on this freezed temperature. So the temperature, like, it's basic, the temperature which is at freezing point. So freezing point temperature is always 0 degrees. Oh gosh, my handwriting is so bad. 0 degree Celsius, or for the ones who don't know or don't measure in Celsius commonly, it is equal to 32 Fahrenheit. Yes. Or it even has like lesser temperature than that. It can go like minus 10 degrees Celsius. Like, that is too cold. Okay, so moving away from this, let us explore a little bit more. Do you know the places in like Antarctica or even the Arctic have permafrost measures about 7,500 feet. Or for the ones who don't measure in feet, it is equal to 2.3 kilometers. So like the permafrost thickness, like whenever you draw some shape which has a volume, not like a rectangle, like a cuboid. I'm very sorry. I don't know how to draw a perfect cuboid. So let's just assume, please assume that this is a cuboid. So we can measure the thickness over here. Not even the thickness, the fatness, right? So permafrost thickness is about 2.3 kilometers. So now, from going further, let's see. Do you know permafrost ground actually in some places do not remain the same throughout the year? Yes, because permafrost is actually a combination of soil, rocks, and sand. So it is like soil, rocks, and sand. So you might be thinking that in the Antarctic and the Arctic, there's not even soil or sand. But do you know that Antarctic or the Arctic actually have, well, the permafrost is not the one that is formed in the Arctic. Actually, most of the places have soil and sand. It could be a desert, or it could be a plain, or anything. They have like soil. So you must be thinking that they don't have permafrost. Then how does it reach to Antarctica or the Arctic? Well, the permafrost actually gets combined, and then it's moved towards the Arctic by some ocean waves or something, and then over there it is held together by the one and only ice. Ice is the one that holds these materials together. Otherwise, if there's nothing to hold them together, they will just like completely fly around everywhere. Like, right? They'll like scatter all over the place. So the ice actually holds it together and combines it, and it stays like that for years. But do you know, like, the surface area? Like, permafrost is basically formed near the oceans and stuff. But if this is your surface, like a base, where you have like grass and you have stuff like it's a base, it's a surface over there which has soil, right? If this is your soil, so it actually contains a huge amount of organic carbon. So let me just show you in a neater and cleaner place so that you'll be able to understand perfectly. So now it's like in the thicker place, basically. So if this is your surface, right? This is your surface. So the soil, which is actually over here, this is your soil. Let's label this part as soil. So this is your soil. Whoops. So this is your soil. So this is your soil, and then there's a huge amount of carbon actually. It has like soil has basically a huge amount of organic carbon, okay? Not the carbon gas, organic carbon. Now you might be thinking, where does this carbon even come from? So as you know, I'm sorry, so organic carbon is actually formed from the dead animals, like dead plants and animals, because everything has carbon. So there are some plants which contain huge amount of carbon. Like not only some, every plant actually contains huge amount of carbon. And it's not a bad, it's very good. And the animals' dead bodies, like the dead bones, they contain also a lot of carbon. So that is why I'm saying that this contain a lot of carbon. Now, going back to our permafrost. Now, these are actually made from carbon, as we know, and they are made from dead plants that cannot do the process of decomposition. That cannot. Decomposition is actually a process of matter, like paper or animals or plants, which decompose and dissolve in the ground and make it as a manure. But these are for those dead plants who cannot do the process of decomposition. So it means that they cannot actually dissolve in the ground. So that is when you can find organic carbon. Now, the bottom layer of the permafrost is mostly made up of minerals from the soil. So soil has a lot of minerals. So the permafrost is mostly made up of soil. Now, the active layer is the most important to remember. As you know, there's also an active layer. Let me take you guys down to the diagram. The active layer is this part of the permafrost. So this is the most important thing to remember here. Now you must be thinking, what is it? So let me take you and explain you why. What is the active layer and why is it so important? So the active layer is basically the topmost layer of the permafrost, which is basically the layer of a soil. Yes, it's just a simple layer of a soil. Now it's very special. And why is it so important? It's actually very, very, very special because it is the only layer which does not freeze us all year. Yes, if you take a look at this, this is the only layer which does not freeze throughout the year. Yes, even though there's the most coldest temperature, these things will freeze, but this will never freeze. Yes, these things will actually freeze, but this will actually never, ever, even if you put like minus anything, but it will never, ever freeze because it's the speciality of it. Now, it actually defrosts or melts during the summer. So you can say that when there's sun, let me just get the sun over here. So whenever there is sort of like a sun, even though when there's sun here, it's actually melts, like, you know, ice when it's kept at less, when it's like removed from the freezing temperature, it melts to form water. The same way, this active layer, it actually melts when the sun is there. Once the sun is gone and the winters are here, it actually again freezes up. And it's like defrosts. So defrost means melt and then it freezes up. But if you go to colder regions, then permafrost, it literally, you know, right? When you go to colder regions, like you put an ice block in the Arctic. This is your ice block and you put it in the Arctic. It will rarely melt to form water because there's so lack of sunlight and it's so cold and freezing temperature over there. So that is why at some colder places, like you can take the Antarctic or even the Arctic, the permafrost actually defrosts or melts during the summer, rarely. Even though it's summer, the sun's out, it will rarely melt, rarely. So in these places, you can say the permafrost is actually very, very thin. It's about 4.6 inches, or you can say 10 to 15 centimeters. Actually, and that is so thin. It's like this normal ruler you have. It's that thin. Now, in the warmer region, the permafrost is actually very thick. If you go near Alaska, I know many of you who live in America, you know Alaska, right? Yes, over there, the permafrost is actually very, very thick. As I told before, it can reach up to 7,500 feet or 2.3 kilometers. But on the places where it's too cold, over there, it will only reach up to 4 to 6 inches or 10 to 15 centimeters. Now, I know, again, I will say this line, that the world only works with diagrams and pictures, because that's the one that will help you guys understand more easily. So I got some diagrams as I showed you before. So let us take a look at this table I made. This table actually is a very important table. If you guys have a notebook, you can actually make and copy this table. It will help you a lot. It is actually going to help you to remember the degree in the poles, and it will help you to recognize the permafrost's temperature and when is the permafrost going to occur and like that. So this is going to be a very important. So if you guys have, it will be very nice to copy this down so that you guys remember it. So let's take a quick recap over here. So in the summertime, the Arctic's temperature is around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Obviously, the means 0 degree actually means 0 degrees Celsius, which is the freezing point. And in the winters, it is minus 40 degrees. That is minus 40 degrees Celsius. That is very cold. Now let's move to Antarctica. Antarctica in the summer seasons is minus 18 degrees Fahrenheit, which if you calculate in Celsius, it will be minus 28.2 degrees Celsius. And in the winter, it is around minus 76 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 60 degrees Celsius. Gosh, that's too cold. Now let me explain you with permafrost. Here I actually made like the layers of permafrost. So this will also help you to remember and understand the layers if you're asked to do so. So the first one is the active layer. So active layer, let's do a quick recap. The active layer actually is the most thinnest layer of the soil. Now, this is the transition zone where it is the composition of the ice, soil, sand, and minerals. And this is the most important permafrost, which we were learning about today, which is the free ground frozen completely. Now, I want you guys to get a notebook or a paper and answer some of the following questions I got for you guys so that you guys will I can see how much you guys concentrated in the lesson. And here are some questions I gave it to you. And even I gave a tip for you guys that if you do it, please do it with honesty. And if you actually don't remember, then it's okay. It's completely fine. You can rewind my video and watch it again. And then you can have a little bit of remembrance again. So the first question is define permafrost in short. You guys, how much inches does the active layer in the coldest places reach? What is so special about the active layer? I was telling you guys the whole time, so you should at least remember this. Define the active layer. What is permafrost naturally made of? So I want you guys to tell all the materials used to make the permafrost. And what does the permafrost near the surface made up of? Actually, this should be what is the permafrost. So let me get you guys correct there. My mistake. What is the permafrost near the surface made of? So I hope you guys like my video. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and keep watching Exploring Experience in Space. Bye-bye.